Hello, this is Spartan Commander, and this is the 288th of Rome Total War Brotherhood game that I've put onto YouTube. Our first teammate is Brotherhood member Gladius, who has bought the Greek Cities faction. Gladius is getting really good with the Greek Cities faction now, and I think that's his faction of choice. As you can see, this isn't the normal flat, featureless map. This is the this is the Prippet Marshes map. Lots of trees. If Gladius has got other units like cavalry or anything like that, they will be hiding in the woods. As I say, this is the Prippet Marshes map. Our next teammate is Brotherhood member Legion 22, who has bought the Macedon faction. They say there, I think he's got other units hiding in the woods as well there. As I say, when you've got wooded maps there, as we've seen in other battle videos, you can hide units. So that's probably where he's got his other units hidden. Our next teammate is Brotherhood member JGP, who has bought the Rome SPQR faction. And it looks to me like he's got about 14 infantry and 6 cavalry in that army. And then our last teammate is myself, Spartan Commander, who has bought the Rome SPQR faction. Now, as I say, I've been bringing these old armies back onto the modern day battlefield for some months now, and this is a very old army, only 12 infantry units and 6 cavalry. I remember last night an RTW player said to me, with only 12 infantry, it's a very low number for the modern day battlefield, so it is. But if you notice, on a lot of my infantry units, I've got an experience stripe, and that really does make a difference. Now, it'll be interesting to see how well this small old army does on the modern day battlefield, and whether those experience stripes on those units will make a difference during the course of the battle. So there's our team there, full of experience. This should be a great battle for you to watch on a different map. And here is the other team. As you can see here, this particular map I like because you've got big, massive open plains that you can fight out in the open if you want, or you've got wooded areas if you want to fight in the woods. Very often we fight in between. We might have some armies in the woods and some out in the open plains. So it's quite an interesting map. Okay, the first enemy team member is Brotherhood member 8 Ball, who has bought the Rome Scipio faction. I noticed you've got a couple of archer units there. That's a pretty solid army to me. And then their next teammate is Brotherhood member Steve Longshanks, who's also bought the Rome Scipio faction. Just look at this fast-moving Roman armor general unit here. Can you see he's fully upgraded that unit? Now, he hasn't made it his general, but it is a Roman general armored unit there. My guess is he's going to use that for fast-moving, hitting like soft targets with that particular unit. And if you notice here, Steve's only got 7 infantry. That's it, 7 infantry there. And I believe he's got 5 archers. So it's an unusual. I know Steve's been experimenting with different armies lately. And if you notice, he's got 5 cavalry. But let's just have a look at the upgrades of this cavalry. Okay, if you count the upgrades there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you've got 9 upgrades. So this cavalry is fully upgraded Praetorian cavalry. And as we've seen in other battle videos, fully upgraded Praetorian cavalry are something to avoid if you can, because they are really tough cavalry. So that's a pretty interesting army there that Steve's bought. Their third teammate is a new Brotherhood member, Tacitus. He hasn't been in the Brotherhood very long. In fact, I think only maybe a week or a couple of weeks now. So it's always interesting to see how new members do on their first YouTube battle, first or second YouTube battle. So it'd be interesting to see how well Tacitus does during the course of the battle. And their third teammate is Brotherhood member Cal, who has bought the Rome Brutio faction. Let's say on the wooded map, most of his units there are hiding in the woods. So there's the other team there. Lots of players full of experience. As I say, it's got the potential to be a really great battle, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, at this very early stage of the battle, I'd just like to show you that, can you see Legion's moved one of his fast-moving cavalry units over to attack one of Steve's archer units that was a little bit exposed at the front of Steve's army. And if you look at the catcher, can you see that archer unit's only got 32 men left, I think. Where is that archer unit? There you go. He's only got 32 men left. So so Legion, with that one cavalry unit, nearly took out 50 of that archer units there, just under 50. So that was a nice little surgical hit there by Legion. Well done. Okay, so at this very early stage of the battle here, you can see that Brotherhood member 8 Ball is looking to bring his cavalry around to my left flank here, on a left flanking attack action there, or threatening an attack there. I notice he's moving his infantry over as well. He's got his archers there, possibly targeting maybe the flank of Legion's Macedon units there. Remember, they're very susceptible to archer fire. As you can see, Tacitus has moved one part of his army, and you've got Steve's archers there. Probably going to target the Macedon pikemen there. Let's say Steve, remember Steve's got, I think it was 5 archer units there. He's probably going to keep them in close formation so that their arrows have more impact as he starts to pick on our Macedon ally. Right, if you notice here that our new member Tacitus has split his army into 2. Very wide formation here. He's got like a B army on his flank and his main army in front of our Macedon ally with his cavalry behind. So that's a very wide army he's got now as he split them up. And over on our right flank here, you can see we've got JGP, and he's facing Brotherhood member Cal with the green Brutii force there. So say there's a general disposition of all the armies there at the very early stage of the battle. Okay, as we just saw earlier, you can see the 8 Ball here is still looking to do a left flanking action against my troops here on the left flank. Steve Longshanks has moved his 7 infantry units up also to threaten my infantry on the left. And as you can see here, loads of pilers going in there into my forward piler shield units there from Steve's army. And as you can see, Steve and 8 Ball seem to be working together here. Nice bit of a combination attack here on my flank. But if you noticed, Brotherhood member Gladius with his Greek city army there has spotted the danger and has brought some his Spartan units over to cover my flank here to help me against this double team attack by Steve and 8 Ball. So that's a nice bit of teamwork there by Gladius. Be interesting to see how well Gladius handles the Greek cities during the course of the battle, as he's got very good with them lately. And you can see here our Macedon ally has got quite a wide front there with his pikes. And meanwhile, over on our right flank here, as you can see, the enemy green Brutii are looking to do a flanking attack here on our allies' purple SPQR army there. Looks like Cal's trying to bring some of his infantry on a flanking action there, probably backed up by cavalry that he's got hiding in the woods. As I say, fighting in the woods can be quite good because you can do ambushes, hide units and bring them out just at the right time and things like that. So it's an interesting map to fight on, this one. Let's see, you can see 8 Ball spread his formation out quite wide. As I said, I think he's going to try and bring units around the flank here to flank my army. You see, you got Steve right in front of my army there, so like it is a bit of a double team effort here on my my Rome SPQR army. As I said, Legion's got his Macedon units out there. That's a nice wide defensive formation there by Legion. If you notice here, can you see that the enemy red Julia units are moving over to our right flank here, maybe with a view to supporting Cal's Brutii units in attacking our right flank. If you notice, Tacitus has bought his 6 good cavalry units, and as you can see, Cal is bringing his green Brutii units over as well. So it looks like maybe a Brutii infantry attack and 2 lots of enemy cavalry attack here on this right flank. So we'll have to watch that quite carefully here. But if you notice, JGP's got his cavalry ready. I've got my cavalry behind JGP's infantry as well. So if there is any big cavalry attacks here on the right flank, then I will be able to support. But remember, because we've got Greek cities in our team, we are cavalry deficient. The rest of the enemy team has bought 5 and 6 good cavalry units each. But obviously the Greek cities, having no good cavalry, have got no cavalry. So we are, as I said, cavalry deficient in this battle. So we have to be very careful how we use our cavalry, because obviously if we use our cavalry in the wrong way and lose it, then we'll be even at an even more disadvantaged position. If you notice here, JGP has got his cavalry there. And I notice that the enemy have got some Scipii cavalry there. Okay, meanwhile over here you can see, as I said earlier, that you've got the enemy Julii cavalry and enemy Brutii cavalry combined, as well as the enemy Brutii infantry here, which looks like they are ready to do an attack on our right flank. Let's just pause the game for a second to take stock of exactly what's happening. As I say here, you've got the red and green enemy cavalry ready to attack, backed up by green infantry. Both JGP and myself have got our cavalry over there to help if they are heavily attacked. Over here in the left centre you can see that Gladius's main Greek cities army is facing Julii, and here over on our left centre you can see that our Macedon ally has got a very good defensive position there. But over on our left flank you can see that the enemy are looking to attack my SBQR army, and that's why Gladius has brought some of his Spartan units over to support. But the main problem is, I think, over on our right flank, as I say, we are cavalry deficient, and if the enemy brings all their cavalry to bear and we don't use our cavalry properly, then we'll be in an even worse position cavalry wise. As you can see, 8 Balls strategically moved his cavalry over from the left flank over to this right flank here to help his allies. So now we're facing a red Brutii cavalry, green red Julii cavalry, green Brutii cavalry, and blue Scipii cavalry over here on our right flank. If you notice here, can you see I'm charging my cavalry directly into 8 Ball's cavalry that's got in behind us. And if you notice that 8 Ball is strategically withdrawing his cavalry there, he might not want to tussle with my cavalry at that time. But I've noticed now that the Brutii cavalry, enemy Brutii cavalry and enemy Julii cavalry have charged into my ally. So I am now trying to counter-attack with my cavalry to take the pressure off of my ally there. And there's my cavalry advance. Bang! As that cavalry hits. But if you notice that the enemy Scipii cavalry is coming up behind me, probably with a view to charge into the rear of my engaged cavalry. Nice little hit there by 8 Ball, and bang as that cavalry goes into mine. So now I've sandwiched between Brutii cavalry and infantry and Scipii cavalry. Not a very good position to be in. And my cavalry has now been sandwiched. Now Steve Longshanks with his fully upgraded cavalry are charging in as well, and here they come. And bang as that cavalry. So we've got all 4 lots of enemy cavalry here on our right flank, attacking our right flank in a very aggressive strategy here. I can see a lot of JGP's SBQR units starting to rout now with the impact of all those cavalry units hitting us, plus the Brutii infantry hitting us. Let's just pause the game for a second. So basically I've lost most of my my cavalry here in this battle, and I think JGP's lost most of his too, and you can see a lot of JGP's units are starting to rout at this stage. If you notice here, we've got not just Brutii infantry, but we've got enemy Julii infantry attacking us as well as all 4 lots of enemy cavalry have just smashed into our right flank. So looking at our right flank now, it looks like it's very precarious to say the least. In fact, I would say that it's almost broken. That was nice strategic cavalry hits there by the enemy team. Now you can see that Legion 22 and Gladius have spotted the danger on the right and are bringing pike units over to support and shore up our right flank if they can. But as I say, our right flank is hanging in the air at the moment. But good teamwork by Gladius and Legion trying to bring reinforcements over. Meanwhile, over in our left centre here, you can see that Legion's left enough pikemen there to still hold the position that he was holding if the enemy attack. And I've still got my SBQR army there. Little bit concerned now. Can you see that Gladius is taking that army that was covering my flank over to help on the other side? So these Scipii units now could be brought round to do a flanking attack or even a rear attack on my standing infantry. So it could be pretty dangerous from one flank to the other here, because if that Scipii army attacks aggressively on the left flank, we could be in problems as well on the left. But as I say, over here on the right now, basically all of our SBQR units that are holding that right flank have been routed. There's a few battle damaged units left, but in general most of the SBQR units that were there have now been routed. As you can see, both Legion, as we said, and Gladius are bringing pike units over here to try and counter the threat on the right flank. Good battlefield awareness by both Legion and Gladius there, spotting the danger and bringing units over to cover.
Our allies have lost their leader. This turn of events may make them lose.
And if you notice that the enemy infantry are wisely retreating away from those pikes, they don't want to fight pikes head on. They know from experience, from past experience, they don't really want to do that, so they're wisely moving their infantry away from the pikes. But as I say now, apart from maybe one unit of JGPs that's left, our right flank was smashed there with so many cavalry hits. Right, like you said, you can see the enemy Scipio unit starting to try and flank my my standing army there. But Gladius spotted that and brought another small force of Spartans over to try and cover my right flank. If you notice, I'm turning units here to face the threat coming in on my left. See, there's loads of pilots coming in from those enemy troops, really causing casualties to my men. Remember though, this is only a small army, only 12 units, but most of the units have got an experience stripe. So it'll be interesting to see whether that experience stripe helps them to hold during the course of the battle here. As I said, you can see Gladius, a good teammate, good teamwork here, bringing his units over to help cover my flank there. As you can see here, a lot of Macedon units there still covering over on my right flank there, doing very well. But as you can see, in behind us there, you've got enemy Julii infantry and the Brutii infantry looking to pull over. Notice that Gladius here is using that one army there of his. I call it the mobile attack force, because during the course of the battle, if I remember right, he had that army going everywhere. Right, can you see some Julii cavalry are charging into the flank of one of Legion's pike units there. Nice surgical hit there by Tacitus's cavalry. Might not have routed that unit, but would have caused him major casualties and lowered the morale of that unit. Nice little hit by him there. Let's say Gladius is moving that Spartan force around, attacking enemy troops. He seems, I remember during the course of the battle, he seemed to be everywhere with that mobile attack force, really striking at the enemy wherever he could. A nice use of Greek cities there, not defensive but in a full attack mode. As you can see, as we said earlier, the enemy Scipio troops are trying to right flank in action here. What I'm going to do with my army here, I look at my army as maybe the anchor of the team. I'm going to hold here. I'm not going to move from that position and try to attract as much attack as I can. Let's just pause the game for a second. As I say here, you can see that the enemy Scipio troops are probably trying to get in behind my army there. We've got a Greek cities unit there. But you can see I'm very hard pressed here with enemy Scipio troops attacking my front. And over here on the right of my army there, you can see cavalry backing out. There's archers there. Still firing, and my Macedon ally here in our left centre is under a lot of pressure from enemy troops as well. And of course, if he fails, they'll just pour in through that gap there. At the rear here, you can see enemy cavalry roaming the battlefield, hitting wherever they want. As I say now, the enemy are cavalry dominant. They are cavalry dominant at this stage. But Gladius is making the most of his elite Spartan troops. As I say, he's moving those Spartans all over the place, engaging enemy troops wherever he can, trying to stop them to get in behind our defence. But as you can see, Legion took some of his pike units over there to try and shore up our right flank, but there's a lot of enemy units there, and if they get in behind those pike units, then they will rout them. So there's a general overview of the battle as it stands at the moment. There's a couple of very battle damaged JGP units there that he's rallied to bring back to the fray. Let's see what happens next. As you can see here, 8-Ball is bringing his Rome Scipio units around behind my SBQR units there. Let's say with a view to try and smash in behind my my infantry. If you notice that, I've noticed that, and I've brought over one of my units from the other flank there to cover this flank against his attack. If you notice that Gladius is bringing some of his Greek city Spartans to bear there as well to help here on this flank as we're being attacked so aggressively by the Scipio units at this stage. JGB's rallied some of his cavalry and charged into the rear of those attacking enemy Scipio troops. Right, can you see some of Tacitus, his cavalry, battle damage as they are charging into the rear of my engaged units. And if you notice that 8 Ball is charging in some of his Scipio cavalry units, and bang! Bang, as those cavalry hits there straight into the front and rear of my engaged SBQR troops. Now remember, I think if those SBQR troops of mine were just gold upgrades, they may well have routed there. But that experience stripes really hold. Yes, I know that my army that I bring is a small army, but with the experience stripe, as you can see there, they are really holding well. And that was a good cavalry hit by the enemy team, sandwiched those units, and yet they still held there. So, as I say, newer players watching this, sometimes putting experience stripes on your troops can pay off. Right, as you can see here, as I said, that army of mine, I'm trying to use as a bit of an anchor for the team. I'm going to try and hold there as long as I can. As I say, I'm getting a lot of enemy attacks on that army. But it's allowing Gladius to move his units around that mobile battle force of his, as I call it. He's moving it around all over the battlefield there, engaging troops, whereas I'm just trying to hold here. As you can see, there's only a few of my Macedon allies left on the right of my army there, and they're getting surrounded, so I don't know how long they'll hold. So I'm being attacked by Julii units and Scipio units here on the right of my formation. And as I say, if my Macedon ally breaks there, they'll pour in through there and get in behind my troops. You see, you got Tacitus's infantry there, probably waiting to move in as well. And as I say, over here you can see there's a lot of enemy Brutii infantry that Gladius is trying to engage. Meanwhile, over to the rear of what's actually happening here, you can see I think Legion still got one of his pike units there, but Tacitus is gradually eroding that unit down by attacking it there. So there's a general overview of the battle as it stands at the moment. As you can see, JGP has rallied some of his cavalry, as I said earlier, and charging into the rear of attacking troops. As you can see, Gladius with that, as I say, that attacking mobile force of his, he split that into two. Right, if you notice here, our Macedon ally to the right of my formation has just basically been broken. The enemy of, I think it's just the Macedon general that's left there now. But as you can see, the Macedon formation that was on my right there has now been broken. And so the enemy could start trying to pour in from that side. Right, I think the enemy Macedon general's unit has just been wiped out now. So as you can see, the enemy blue Scipii and the enemy red Julii there now could start pouring round to my right flank. They're already putting pressure onto that right flank of mine there. Notice Steve bringing units around the rear. Probably looking to get in behind my engaged troops there. Nice little strategic move there by Steve. But if you notice, Gladius has spotted that and is moving his Greek city units over. As I say, new players watching this, you know team battles are all about teamwork and battlefield awareness. And if you watch how well Gladius is playing with the Greek cities, you see that's all about that. As I say here, let's pause the game for a second. As you can see here, Gladius is in behind my infantry there, supporting the rear of my infantry, stopping enemy trying to get in behind. You can see 8 Balls getting units in behind us there, his Scipio units. As I say, my units are hard pressed at the moment, but as I said, I wanted to be the anchor of the team there, trying to hold, attracting enemy units to attack, hopefully giving my allies chance to deal with other enemy units there. As I say, Steve now has got units in behind us. Remember, the enemy are the blue, the red and the green, and our allies are Macedon, Greek cities and purple SBQR. So there you can see, as I say, Gladius has got units all over the battlefield, engaging enemy units all over the place there, showing real battlefield awareness here. As I say, newer players to RTW probably play with Greek cities maybe in a defensive formation, but you can see how effective they can be if you use them in an attacking tactical way. Really effective, and it wouldn't surprise me if Gladius gets some good kills at the end of this battle, because this game does reward good kills. As I say, I think we might have just one of our Macedon allies units left, and he's just in behind my my infantry there. But I think maybe the rest of the Mastodon units have been taken out. I think most of JGP's units have been taken out as well. So things are not looking good for our team there. As you can see, 8 Balls just charged some cavalry into the rear of my engaged infantry. They were very battle damaged cavalry, but as I say, the infantry that I've got left are the ones with the experienced stripes, so they're going to hold now. As I said earlier, if they were just gold shield, gold attack, they may well have broken by now, but that experienced stripe does make a difference. And you players watching this, just to say that if ever you want to experiment with putting a stripe on your units. Okay, so we've killed a lot of the enemy generals now, which is good. Obviously, by killing those enemy generals, we've lowered the morale of their troops. But as you can see, my small army there is being absolutely engulfed by enemy troops. Remember, the red and the blue are the enemy troops. But if you notice, my as I say, Gladius with his Greek cities has been absolutely fantastic. The way that he's been using those Greek city units all over the battlefield. And it's really nice to see how aggressive the enemy have been, though, trying to break my army here, trying to smash. Because I think if they could have broken my army there, as I was trying to be the anchor, then they'd have poured through where my army was, and that would have been obviously been bad for our team. As you can see, enemy unit charged into the rear of my engaged infantry. See, Legion spotted that and turned with his one Macedon unit I think he's got left there to engage those troops. Nice bit of teamwork there. Some enemy troops coming in behind us here. But if you notice here, can you see Gladius using that mobile attack force that we've been talking about all game there, starting to roll the enemy troops up there from right to left that were attacking my my infantry there.
Your allies need
I think Legion's last Mastodon unit there has just been routed there by the enemy team. Remember, the enemy are the red, the green, the red and the green there, and the blue. The red, green and the blue is the enemy team, and our team are the purple SBQR and the Greek cities. As I say, newer players to this who have played with the Greek city factions before, you may well just form up into a nice tight defensive box, which is very strong in its own way. But if you do that, very often a good team will bypass you and take out your allies, and then your allies won't be very happy with you. But if you use your Greek cities in a very aggressive way, remember, when you choose Greek cities, you put your team at a cavalry disadvantage. So you must make up for that by using them very well. Okay, let's just pause the game for a second. As you can see here, I've got a few battle damaged units left that have been holding most of the game. As I say, that army of mine was trying to be the anchor of our team. Gladius has been, as I said, all over the battlefield there, attacking enemy troops. And JGP and Legion 22, there's Mastodon units there. We're doing extremely well as well. And it's nice to see the aggressive attacking strategy of the enemy team too. So say if you look all over the battlefield, this is a big wide battlefield, and you can see piles of dead all over it, where the battle has been fought all over this this battlefield here. If you notice now, I've taken my army out of the defensive mode that it was in when it was the anchor of the team, and I've started to attack now, backing up my my Greek cities ally there. As I said before, remember the enemy are the blue Scipii and the red Julii here, and the green Brutii. So you can see just at a glance the enemy team. Remember, our team, the ones that are left now, I think, are just the Greek cities, Gladius and myself, SBQR infantry. You see there's a lot of pressure on this small group of Spartan units here by the enemy team. If you notice, I'm sending what's left of my infantry down to support those units. Probably Gladius to see that, although Gladius is fighting up there against enemy troops already. But to say, There's a few Spartan units here. They're down to less than 20 men in those units, I think, and they're being attacked heavily by enemy troops. But as you can see, I've brought my SPQR, purple SPQR troops down to help. Remember, as we said before, team battles are all just about that, team battles. Right, can you see 2 enemy units in to attack my general? And bang, as those infantry units come in. Nice spot in there by the enemy team. They saw my general there and they've decided to attack. Obviously, they are aware that if they can kill my general, that will lower the morale of my troops and maybe lead them to rout. But that general of mine still hold him. And if you notice now that Gladius finished off those enemy troops that was above us now, and is now bringing his infantry in to attack what's left of the enemy troops. If you look at Gladius's units that are left, he hasn't got a lot of units left now, and they're all very battle damaged, but he used them superbly all over the battlefield. As I say, I know I've said this before, but newer players, it's a really good example on how to use Greek cities. Right, let's just pause the game for a second, just to have a look at a general overview of the battlefield here. You can see this is an extremely spread out battle in between the trees. Here you can see the amount of dead, the piles of dead all over the battlefield here. It was quite a big spread out battle. And as I say, when we lost our right flank at the beginning there, that could have been it for us, but with great teamwork, it looks like we've managed to turn things around. You can see the massive piles of dead here. I think that was that big cavalry hit at the beginning of the game in that area. That was pretty massive. But as I said, you could see how spread out the battle was and how intense it was all over the battlefield there. Let's say here most of the enemy troops now have starting to rout there, and it looks like our team has has managed to go on and win the battle. I think even though the enemy team was cavalry dominant, I think when they were fighting big units of Macedon pikemen and the Greek cities pikes as well, of course that kind of neutralises the cavalry advantage there in a way. So we were quite lucky. If you look at my units here, can you see quite battle damaged units that all that I've got left? One 11-man unit there, one 8-man unit. But as I say, those 11 and 8-man unit there could well have routed, but because they got that experience stripe on, they do hold. So as I say, newer players to RTW that might be looking to make experimental armies, try putting a stripe on your units and see how well they do. As I say, I think there's just a few enemy archer units left there for us to try and get to, but as I say, it looks like our team has managed to win the battle there. Wouldn't surprise me if the enemy general started to admit defeat now.
Victory is ours, but only by the narrowest of margins.
Let's say that was a really good example of how to use Greek cities. Okay, first thing I'd like to say is really well played there. It was a great Brotherhood battle. Well done to all the Brotherhood members in that battle there. Extremely well done. As you can see, it was only a very close victory. As I said, this game did very close, and I think it would be very close. Just like to draw your attention to Brotherhood member Gladius' kills there. Now, do you remember we saw him all over the battlefield being aggressive with his Greek cities there? Now, bearing in mind, he's only fighting 81-man units. He's not fighting any of the big 120-man units. To get 2,116 kills is really phenomenal. And it just goes to show, if you use Greek cities, well, that's what you can get. Just like to draw your attention to our newest member, Tacitus, getting 1,883 kills. Well done, Tacitus. I think a lot of people were watching you as I think this was your first Brotherhood battle in Brotherhood tags, and really well played there to get those kills, and really well done to 8-Ball as well, 1,615 kills. If you notice, my kills not very good, but do you remember I was defensive for most of that battle? Was kind of the anchor of the team there. If you're defensive, you don't get that many kills. This game rewards good, aggressive attacking with kills there. Poor old JGP got hit so hard on that right flank by 4 lots of cavalry and all that infantry, he didn't get a chance to get some good kills there. But really well done. As I say, new players watching this, if you saw how well Gladius played with those Greek cities, aggressive strategy, always attacking, keeping the enemy on the back foot. That's why he got so many kills with that. You don't have to play Greek cities defensively. Once you get a bit of confidence with them, you could see how well they do on the battlefield if you're aggressive. So I thought that was a great example of how you can use the Greek cities faction. Okay, this is Spartan Commander saying, hope you enjoyed the battle, and bye for now.